Hello, hello, hello. And this is the Urban Surfer Glenn T. You are listening to another episode of Riding the Wave. Thank you for everybody that is listening to my podcast, commenting, giving me suggestions, comments, etc. I do like the feedback. It is a motivating feature. So how's everybody out there today? Is everybody accomplishing their goals? Is everybody getting to where they're going safely? Is everybody thinking in a way where they can potentially change themselves in a more positive fashion? Hopefully you answered yes to these things. And if you're just joining in, again, these perceptions and opinions are my own. These are my own realities. My mission here is only to change one mind a day in a positive way. So again, this is the Urban Surfer Glenn T. This is Riding the Wave. Today's topic: have you forgiven yourself? I know this is one of those topics that a lot of people tend to get into. Sometimes people don't realize if they have not, but it's important all the same. I mean, a lot of us are reestablishing our lives. We're trying to make new moves. We're trying to get back into a social commitment with people. We're just trying to find ourselves at times. And in order to do that, one of the questions that you must ask yourself is, have you forgiven yourself? A lot of times we hold on to our past and it prevents us from moving forward in our futures. So just take the time to think about that. Either way, that's today's topic. For those who are trying to reach me, I do have a Facebook is rtw.podcast. My Twitter is Glenn_town, and my Gmail is ridingthewave.podcast@gmail.com. You can hear my show on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, SoundCloud, YouTube, Spreaker, and Spotify. More venues to come. Website is coming soon. So again, I hope everybody out there is feeling good. I hope everybody out there is doing the right thing and just thinking in a positive way. Life is certainly short, but have you forgiven yourself? That is something that we have to ask ourselves again, because it's not the easiest thing to do. We say we do. We want to have the intentions of doing so, but have we actually committed ourselves to forgiving ourselves? Have we actually accomplished it so far? Are we in the steps of getting there? There's certainly signs out there if you haven't forgiven yourself. How many people you think have truly forgiven themselves? I know I do have some signs that we can talk about. Maybe these things will stick out to you. Maybe these things will be foreign to you, but either way, if you do identify, you either came from it or you have it now. So let's just get right into it. What are some of the signs that you have not forgiven yourself yet? Something really simple. And for those who have any suggestions, questions, comments, I do like those, and I do enjoy just going over them. Sometimes they don't make sense, sometimes they do, but all the same, I love the interaction. Signs you haven't forgiven yourself. One good one: if you keep on reliving that moment or that situation where it caused you that level of regret, that's a good sign of stating that you haven't forgiven yourself yet. You know, you come up in conversation, sometimes things get deep. People talk about their accomplishments or what they came from. And then when you start to talk about it, you relive it. You know, you can see the emotion in your speech. You know, your body language changes. It's almost like you're there again. That's a sign. That's certainly a sign. That's a clear red flag that you haven't forgiven yourself if you constantly relive it. Whether you're around people, whether you're alone, if you find yourself revisiting these bad moments, that is a sign that you are still causing yourself pain and suffering. So tell me, for all those people who haven't forgiven themselves, I mean, if you haven't seen that and you haven't quite relived it over and over again, have you ever felt unworthy? You don't deserve that new position. You don't deserve that new relationship. You don't deserve that second chance. You just don't feel like you're worth the shot. That's a huge red flag. Not only is it just a sign, but that's a huge sign. When you just don't feel worthy, I mean, that can go into other things like insecurities and self-worth, and you can really start taking a huge hit to your self-esteem and, you know, what makes you feel good about yourself. So be careful of that. I mean, you know, if you're feeling unworthy about some stuff, you may want to evaluate if you actually forgiven yourself for something. And if you haven't, maybe you want to just search what it is. But either way, I just want to go ahead and say that it is a certain red flag. If you're reliving it, if you're feeling unworthy, these are certainly signs that you have yet to forgive in yourself. Just another one to throw out there. I know a lot of people may identify with this one here, but how many of you are afraid to take risks? You feel safe in your bubble, comfortable, nothing's going to happen, you're in a controlled space. So you don't find yourself being so risque, you don't find yourself going out there taking chances. Maybe because you haven't forgiven yourself about something that you've done in the past. Again, you know, it's not natural to be afraid to take risks. I mean, we are careful and we are conscious human beings, but sometimes you have to put yourself out there. Risk also gains rewards. If you find yourself just being a little too gun shy and you find yourself a little too conservative at this point, you may have something hanging over your head that you haven't addressed within yourself. You know, it's always time to take an assessment. I mean, you know, we have a lot of free time in the day. If you have these feelings, you know, because people have good feelings, bad feelings, but you see feelings revisiting you all the time, and you know, you're feeling down and out about stuff. Like, you know, if you don't get your way, it's just like, hey, man, why should I? That prevents you from taking risks. That's another telltale sign that you haven't forgiven yourself. So it's just something that you want to consider. Nothing to get too over the cliff about. But if you do see any of these signs, you may just want to consider if you're really forgiving yourself for something you've done. I mean, we all have done things that we may have laid some regret towards. We've all have done things that we're not actually proud of. But we can also move on. We don't have to wait for anyone or anything's permission. We can move on. So for you that's just tuning in, again, my name is the Urban Surfer Glenn T. You are listening to Riding the Wave. And today's topic is, have you forgiven yourself? Signs you haven't is reliving it, feeling unworthy, you're afraid to take risks. So let me just move right into the next aspect. If you have not forgiven yourself, why should you now? Why should you forgive yourself? Give yourself a good reason. I mean, you've been beating yourself up all this time, right? I mean, you've been reliving that moment over and over again, to the point where you can probably get into all the minuscule details of the moment. But why should you let that moment go now? Why should you actually start to heal and forgive yourself? Suggestions, questions, comments. This would be a good time to hear from you guys. Why should you forgive yourself? Hey, just to throw one out there, it gives you a peace of mind, doesn't it? Don't you get that huge sense of ease when you just let something go? You know what I mean, right? You know that thing that's been hanging over your head all this time, and you just said, hey, man, why am I still holding on to this? So, I mean, that's actually a reason why you should let it go. I mean, it gives you a peace of mind. People pay for peace of mind. Do yourself a favor. Do yourself a huge favor and go ahead and give yourself that peace of mind. That should be a nice start for you. Why should you forgive yourself? Because it gives you that peace of mind to relax. You can start to gain sleep again. You can start to see clearly again, because now you're not looking through a kaleidoscope of hurt and pain. You're now looking at it through a sense of, you know, a noble stance and a character that's being built and refined. Why else? Why else should you forgive yourself? Besides the fact that we're all human and we all make mistakes. I mean, that's just laying it to the obvious. But why else should you forgive yourself? What about because it gives you strength? It strengthens you. It gives you character, right? You came out of this big adversity. I mean, whether you were doing something wrong, you were lying, manipulating, or cheating, or stealing, or whatever it was, you know, you could have been a bad person. Who knows? And sometimes who really wants to know? You know, if we all compared the bad, I mean, we'll probably be here all day long. Aside from that, another reason why you should just forgive yourself, because, again, strengthens your character. Gives you that reason to wake up in the morning. It gives you the ability to teach somebody. hey, don't do this, man, because this is what happens. I came out of that, and it's a struggle to get out of that. But if you ever need to get out of that, I can give you assistance in doing so. People come to you and show you more respect because it's like, hey, this person came from this, and now they're here. It allows you to grow. With strength comes growth. You're no longer afraid to make a change. Because you see, with change, you may get that good reward that you've been waiting for all this time. Why hold yourself back? People can live a totally miserable life, where they feel weak and they feel vulnerable and they feel like the victim. All because they've done some stuff they wasn't proud of and they never let it go. Don't be fooled. People around you see that. They see that pain in your eyes. They see that hurt. I remember one time when I was working for a bank. And, I'm just sitting there doing my job. And we're coming up on our quarterlies, right? So I've switched management by then. The manager that I was underneath, they moved on to a different department. And I received a manager that was actually new. So we had to go through our quarterlies with our past managers. Anyway, I'm in my job. And it comes time to this, hey, great performance, blah, blah, blah. Everything's checking off. I'm looking good. And she said, let me talk to you for a moment. And I said, sure. I mean, what is there to talk about right now? Not being cocky or anything, but I've done everything that I need to do as an employee. So I don't want to waste too much of your time. I'm sure there's other people that can use your guidance. And she just proceeded to say, before you get up, we both agree that you have done nice things. But I want to tell you something that probably nobody else has told you. I look into your eyes, right? And so does everybody else in this establishment. You have a nice smile, pretty eyes. Everybody's just into you. You're very pleasant. So people are actually fooled, but I'm not. Fooled? I said, what are you talking about? I think we're going off track here. And she said, no. She said, that beautiful smile and those pretty eyes got everybody fooled. But when I look at you, I see pain. There's a lot of pain behind that smile and behind those pretty eyes. And when she said that, I almost cried on the spot. I mean, I couldn't show her that or anything like that. But this is something that I don't even share. Because, at the time, I was going through a divorce. I was estranged from my children. I had other family issues. I had relationship issues. I was going through the works at the time. Just trying to be strong, going to work every day, just trying to excel because that's how people cope with pain sometimes. They try to overachieve. But she looked at me in my face and said, you have everybody in here fooled, but I can see the pain in your eyes. And the reason why I got so emotional, it was because I have yet to forgive myself at that stage. So what she saw was exactly correct. And that's what really made me start working on myself. And that alone gave me such strength that I realized that I have to tell people. I have to give this information up. You got to be strong. My character is not the same as the character before. When you look in my eyes now, you don't see that pain. You see accomplishment. And it's because I just looked at the world a little bit different. This is another reason why you should just actually forgive yourself. It allows that strength to come into your heart. It allows you to get that discipline and that noble sense to actually have you propel forward. And just to be even about things, right? Another thing that I can actually say why you would want to forgive yourself is because you're actually giving yourself the gift. It's a gift. We find ourselves so generous with people. But are we generous with ourselves? Just think about what you're doing for yourself by being forgiving to yourself. It is a gift that nobody can take from you, and it keeps on giving. Why? Because you wake up empowered and strengthened every day. Your mind is at ease. You feel good about yourself. And guess what comes out of that? Positive things. Give yourself that gift, that ability to say, hey, You know what? I made some mistakes. I let it go. You'd be surprised what that can actually do for you. So that brings me to something else. And again, this is the Urban Surfer Glenn T. You are listening to Riding the Wave. If you want to reach out to me, my Facebook is rtw.podcast. My Twitter is Glenn_town. And my Gmail is ridingthewave.podcast@gmail.com. So what are ways to actually forgive yourself? How do you start to forgive yourself? Because that's an important step. We may be at the acknowledgement phase now where we say, hey, you know what? I really do need to forgive myself. I keep on reliving all of these things that I've done. I always feel unworthy or feel that I don't deserve the fruits of life because I've made some huge mistakes. I don't take risks anymore because I'm just too far in my shell. So we may acknowledge this. And we may even know why now. We can make sense of it, why we should actually give ourselves that chance to be forgiving towards ourselves. It's a gift. It gives you strength. It gives you that peace of mind. I mean, face it. There's nothing but benefit in it. So how do we actually start to forgive ourselves? One good way of doing that is stop pointing fingers. Just take the responsibility. Take the hit. Stop pointing fingers, because that's one way that you're going to keep on reliving the situation and reliving the situation. Just say, hey, everything is my fault. It's all my fault. I'm going to go ahead and accept it. I'm going to be man or woman enough to just face the music. Make the bed and lay in it. This way, it'll allow you to see your errors, the wrongs in your actions. And then you'll see the consequences in those wrongs. You'll see, hey, if I do this, this happens. Again, experience is the best teacher. So one way to actually start forgiving yourself is to stop pointing fingers. You can get to the root cause of a lot of stuff that way. Another thing is, and I know this is hard, this is not the easiest thing to do, but disconnect from the situation. Stop being such an emotional creature. Take the situation for what it is. Take all of the names out of it. Take everything away from it. Don't give it any value and just create a scenario from it. Now evaluate that scenario as if it did not belong to you at all. If somebody was coming to you to solve this exact problem and it didn't have your attachment to it, what would you do? That is one very good way to actually start to forgive yourself, because now you can not only follow your own guidance, but when you see it work, it'll allow you to forgive yourself and just disconnect from the whole situation. It won't ride you anymore. It won't make you feel like you owe anybody or anything. Learn from the past. Learn that we're human beings, that we make mistakes. You committed yourself to a situation, a bunch of bad choices, and you've played it over in your head over and over again. You looked at the situation. You've gotten yourself to the point where, hey, you took the blame. You took all the names out of it. You were able to solve it. Learn from that past. Let the past be your guide. There's nothing new under the sun, and history tends to repeat itself. We know these things are cliche, but true. Learn from it. Use it as a rule book for what not to do. We all make mistakes. And God is forgiving. God is the most forgiving. So we know we committed something wrong. We ask for his forgiveness. We do the right thing in return. And we just learn from the past. It's not that hard. We're harder on ourselves than God is on us. That's just something that people fail to realize, but it's true. Stop being so hard on yourself. Stop beating yourself up. Just learn from it. Stop pointing fingers on everybody. Say, hey, this is the reason why this happened. That's the reason why it happened. No, the reason why it happened was because you was included in the scenario. Take that blame. Take the names off of it. Learn from the past. These are ways that we can actually start to forgive ourselves. It's very important in a sense of growth to begin to forgive ourselves, because that way we can start to see clearly and think and be normal human beings, not hurt creatures who are vulnerable and always making those emotional decisions. My name is Glenn T. I am the Urban Surfer. You have been riding a wave. Thank you again for all of your suggestions, your comments, and your support. Please get to where you're going safely. Please be smooth, be safe. Thank you again for tuning in. Until the next time, take care.